The crystal glasses clinked against the mahogany dining table as my mother sat down another bottle of expensive wine. Christmas dinner at the Sullivan house was in full swing, complete with the annual tradition of everyone bragging about their corporate achievements while subtly, or not so subtly, mocking my career choices. And just like that, I secured the merger with First Capital Bank, my sister Victoria announced, earning appreciative murmurs from our assembled family. By next quarter, Sullivan Financial will be the largest banking software provider in the Northeast. I took another sip of water, trying to ignore the irony of her statement. If only they knew who really controlled the banking software industry. Olivia? My Aunt Margaret's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Still doing that little website thing? All eyes turned to me, and I could feel the judgment radiating from each carefully maintained expression. At 33, I was the family disappointment, the one who'd walked away from a prestigious position at Sullivan Financial to start my own tech company. Yes, I replied simply, but before I could elaborate, Victoria let out a dramatic sigh. Still playing with your little website? She said, her voice dripping with condescension. You know, we're always hiring junior developers at Sullivan Financial. I could put in a good word. She's just not cut out for corporate success, my mother added, refilling Victoria's glass while pointedly ignoring mine. Not everyone can be a natural leader like your sister. I felt my jaw tighten but kept my expression neutral. If they only knew that my little website was actually Novate Tech Solutions, one of the most sophisticated financial technology companies in the world, operating through a complex network of shell corporations and subsidiaries. Well, not everyone can be as successful as Victoria, my father chimed in, beaming at my sister. She's about to revolutionize the entire banking industry with our new security platform. Victoria pined under the praise, but I had to suppress a smile. Their new security platform? If only they knew who really owned the underlying technology. Actually, I said carefully, I have some news of my own. Oh, darling, my mother interrupted. Perhaps save the small updates for another time. Victoria was just about to tell us about the new corporate headquarters. I fell silent, watching as my sister launched into a detailed description of Sullivan Financial's expansion plans. Let them have tonight, I thought. Tomorrow would change everything. Later that evening, as I drove back to my modest apartment, the one my family assumed was all I could afford, my phone buzzed with an urgent message from Marcus, my chief technology officer. Everything's set for tomorrow. All systems are ready for the integration switch. They won't know what hit them. I smiled, thinking of the carefully orchestrated plan that would unfold in less than 12 hours. For 3 years, I'd operated in the shadows, building an empire while my family dismissed me as a failure. Novate wasn't just another software company. It was the invisible giant that had systematically acquired controlling interests in key financial infrastructure across the country. And tomorrow, Sullivan Financial would discover that their precious new security platform was actually built on Novate's architecture. The licensing agreement they'd so eagerly signed gave us complete control over their entire system. Victoria's triumphant merger announcement was about to become her biggest humiliation. I parked my car and took the elevator to my apartment, not the real one in the penthouse of the city's most exclusive building, but the modest space I maintained for family visits. Inside, I opened my safe and pulled out the final documents for tomorrow's technical integration. The morning would bring the kind of dramatic revelation my family seemed to love so much, only this time, the shock would be on them. My phone buzzed again, another message from Marcus. Server migration is complete. By sunrise, every major bank in the Northeast will be running on our systems. I poured myself a glass of wine, not the cheap variety my family assumed I drank, but a vintage worth more than Victoria's monthly salary. Tomorrow would mark the end of Olivia the nobody, the family disappointment, the one who was just playing with websites. Tomorrow, they'd learn exactly who I'd become while they were too busy looking down their noses to notice my rise. I opened my laptop to review the final stage of our plan. 3 years ago, when I left Sullivan Financial, I'd seen what they couldn't, that traditional banking software was vulnerable, outdated, and ripe for disruption. I tried to tell them, to convince them we needed to innovate. You're just jealous of your sister's success, my father had said dismissively. Leave the real technical decisions to those who understand them. So I did. I left the company and started building something better, something that would revolutionize financial technology while they clung to their outdated systems. What they didn't know was that their entire infrastructure now depended on my company's technology. I brought up the dashboard showing our global network, thousands of servers, processing millions of transactions across every major financial institution in the country, all of it hidden behind layers of shell companies and subsidiaries, with Novate Tech quietly pulling the strings. Tomorrow, when the final integration was complete, every transaction at Sullivan Financial would route through our servers, every decision they made would require our approval, every dollar they moved would flow through systems I controlled. My phone chimed with a family group text from my mother. Don't forget Sullivan Financial's big announcement tomorrow. Victoria will be on CNBC discussing the merger. I smiled, imagining the very different announcement that would actually be made. The carefully crafted press release was already prepared, revealing Novate as the true power behind the banking industry's technological infrastructure. Opening my real email, not the basic account my family knew about, but the secure server used by one of the most powerful CEOs in tech, I reviewed the message that would go out to all Sullivan Financial clients tomorrow morning. The one explaining that their accounts were now being managed by Novate's superior systems. The one revealing that the little website they'd mocked had become the backbone of modern banking. I walked to my window, looking out at the city where I built my empire in secret. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they'd learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. The next morning, I sat in my real office, the entire top floor of Novatech headquarters, watching the sun rise over the city skyline. Across the street, the Sullivan Financial building stood proud and oblivious, its logo still illuminated in the early morning light. Ms. Walker, my assistant Sarah appeared at my door. It's starting. I turned to my monitors, where dozens of screens showed banking systems across the country switching over to Novatech infrastructure. Each transition was seamless, invisible to the average user, but revolutionary in its implications. Your sister just arrived at Sullivan Financial, Marcus reported, joining us with his tablet. She's about to go live on CNBC to announce the merger. I smiled, adjusting my Armani suit, a far cry from the intentionally modest clothes I wore around my family. Has she tried to access any accounts yet? Not yet. The board members are starting to arrive for the morning meeting. Several have already attempted to log in. Right on cue, my phone lit up with urgent messages from Sullivan Financial's tech support team, messages meant for their senior management but quietly routed to my office instead. Multiple system access issues, unable to verify credentials, payment processing delays. I stood up, gathering my documents. Time to pay my family a visit. The walk across the street felt surreal. Through the glass walls of Sullivan Financial's lobby, I could see Victoria standing with a group of reporters, practicing her merger announcement. My father was nearby, beaming with pride as he watched his golden child prepare for her moment of glory. I stepped into the elevator, Marcus and Sarah flanking me with briefcases containing the evidence of our complete control over the banking system. The doors opened directly into the executive floor, where chaos had already begun to unfold. What do you mean all the accounts are locked? My father's voice boomed from the conference room. How can every single system be down? Victoria's interview prep had been interrupted, her perfect composure cracking as she barked orders into her phone. I don't care what it takes. Get those servers back online now. I walked calmly into the conference room, followed by my executive team. Olivia? Victoria's voice rose an octave. What are you doing here? We're in the middle of a crisis. I know, I replied, setting my briefcase on the polished conference table. That's why I'm here. This is ridiculous, my father snapped. We don't have time for whatever small problem you're having with your website. Our entire system is down. No, I corrected him, nodding to Marcus, who began distributing folders to the stunned board members. Your system is working perfectly, it's just under new management. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she opened the folder. What is this? The complete documentation showing Novate's ownership of your core banking infrastructure, I explained, or more specifically, my ownership. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face had gone pale as he scanned the documents. This is impossible, he whispered. Novatech is a multi-billion-dollar company. They control half the banking software in the country. Yes, I agreed. We do. We? Victoria's voice cracked. What do you mean, we? I turned to the main screen, bringing up Novate's true organizational structure. That little website you've been mocking? I said. It was just the public face behind it. I built the largest financial technology company in the world. My mother, who had arrived just in time to witness the revelation, sank into a chair. But you work from that small office downtown, she stammered. A front, I explained. Novate operates in 40 countries. We all miss building. Actually, as of this morning, we control every transaction that flows through Sullivan Financial systems. Why? My father demanded, his voice hoarse. Why go to all this trouble? I met his eyes across the table. 3 years ago, I tried to tell you our systems were vulnerable, that we needed to innovate or be left behind. You told me to leave the real technical decisions to those who understand them. Well, I did. I gestured to Sarah, who began passing out more documents. These papers detail exactly how outdated and vulnerable your current infrastructure is. Everything you've built is now dependent on Novate's superior systems. Victoria's hand shook as she flipped through the pages. You'll destroy us, she whispered. No, I corrected, I'm saving you. Novatech isn't just taking control. We're offering to acquire Sullivan Financial at a fair price before the market realizes how vulnerable you really are. The board members leaned forward, subtly very interested. They'd seen the warning signs, even if they'd been afraid to challenge the Sullivan family about it. You can't do this, my father breathed. We're family. Family? I laughed softly. Was it family when you dismissed every idea I brought to the table? When you mocked my work? When you called my company a little website just yesterday? I stood up, surveying the room. You have 24 hours to accept our offer. After that, we go public with everything we found. Your choice. Mom, Victoria pleaded, turning to her mother, who sat frozen in shock. Do something. But there was nothing she could do, nothing any of them could do. Last night at Christmas dinner, I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent room, you laughed at my business. You spent years undermining me, belittling my achievements, assuming my silence meant weakness. I walked to the door, then turned back one final time. I want you to remember this moment. Remember that the daughter you dismissed as a failure now controls every dollar you touch. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal requirements. Victoria was escorted to her office to collect her things, her perfect composure finally cracking as reality set in. My father avoided my eyes as he surrendered his executive credentials. My mother's designer handbag lay forgotten on the conference table. Later that evening, I stood in my office at Novatech, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. Marcus appeared with a glass of champagne, the same expensive brand my family had been drinking last night while mocking my career. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. All these years of hiding your success? I thought about the decades of condescension, the dismissive comments, the patronizing offers of entry-level positions. Then I thought about the empire I built, the thousands of employees who relied on me, the technology we created. It wasn't about revenge, I said finally. It was about proving that success doesn't always look the way they think it should, that you don't have to follow their path to build something meaningful. The following year brought changes no one in my family could have predicted. Sullivan Financial, under Novate's leadership, transformed into a cutting-edge technology company. Victoria eventually found a mid-level position at another firm, hopefully having learned the value of humility. My parents, their banking dynasty shattered, stopped hosting their achievement-focused holiday dinners. And me? I kept building, growing, expanding, not to prove anything to them anymore, but because I discovered something they never understood. True success isn't about titles, or family names, or merger announcements. It's about creating something meaningful, something that lasts. These days, when people ask about my path to success, I tell them the truth. Sometimes the best response to those who underestimate you isn't to prove them wrong immediately. It's to build something so magnificent that when they finally realize their mistake, it's already too late to matter.